I'm with David Brabham driving the Paynos LMP07. David, what do you get out of driving racing cars? What do you enjoy the most? What do you maybe enjoy not so much?
Well, I enjoy winning. I don't enjoy losing. It's a lot of people ask me that question. What do you get out of racing? Why do you do it? What is it? And I don't think you can just say one thing. I think there's so many different factors in the sport. Personally, I'm in an environment which is competitive, which I enjoy being in competitive environments, whether it's racing or it's outside of racing. And it's that I suppose you're pushing yourself and your limits all the time. And as you get older, you gain experience not in being in a race car, but life in general, which helps in your driving as you get older as well. And to say, go on.
Is there something comparable for people who've never driven a racing car that you can say, well, it's a bit like, I don't know, playing tennis, or it's a bit like, is it like anything, or is it something that just doesn't have any analogy at all?
I think it is unique in some way, because it's not like a game of tennis where you've got one opponent, you've got a racket and a ball and a court. In motorsport, the cars are so different, the teams are different. We go to different tracks. It's there are so many things that can either go right or go wrong.
Is there a sense in which you're competing with yourself as well as the competition, the drivers of the other cars?
Yeah, I mean, you always try and push. I do. I'm always trying to learn more, push myself more, and you're involved in a team environment, particularly in sports cars, because you've got another driver that you've got to work with, which I enjoy that working relationship. I enjoy people, and I enjoy working with people. And as I've got older, I've become better at working with people, and I think that's also helped in my driving as well. And and personally, as an individual, you go through stages, where you're confident, everything's going right, and then all of a sudden things go tits up, and all of a sudden doubts start coming in. You end up going on a bit of a spiral. You start doubting yourself and stuff like that, and that probably happened more in my early part of my career. But as I've learned more about me and life and all that sort of thing, I'm able to cope with that better, where I don't have those doubts about myself, because I know what I can do and I know I do it well. But sometimes that's not enough, because other things around you aren't working quite well.
You're kind of describing character traits there that you can see in yourself. Are there things that you think that kind of are common to all racing drivers, certain particular character traits that they have?
Yes and no. I mean, in racing, everyone wants to win, and each person has their own style at doing it, and everyone's an individual, whether they're a racing driver or the guy off the street, and we are, as in human beings, we are so complex that it's, I think a lot of people, and including myself in some way, we struggle to know what we actually are and what we're doing here on this earth, and everyone approaches things very differently. I can only speak for myself and the learning that I've had and the experience I look forward to in the future.
In terms of, as you say, the learning that you've had, obviously your family background, racing must have been a part of your life from a very early age, or were you kind of protected from it and then fell into it through a different route?
Yeah, that was, yes. I had an interest in racing. I knew my dad raced. My dad retired when I was four and a half. We went back to Australia, and I grew up there. My passion was football, soccer, and I played soccer every week and stuff. My brother started racing while I was playing soccer. I knew he was racing, and I went to a few races, but I had an interest, but I didn't have a passion for it as such, because my love and passion was football. And it wasn't really till I left school and then visited my brother Jeffrey in America, who was doing Indy cars, that I actually saw racing really for the first time properly. And I then decided I wanted to try it and see whether I would enjoy it or not. And well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I mean, do you sort of ever kind of feel sad perhaps about the fact that if you may have got into it earlier, your career might have taken a different direction? You might have been, I won't say more successful, because you've been very successful, but successful in different arenas such as Formula One or other areas. Do you feel any regrets about that, or are you more content with the way life has happened, the way it's happened?
As I've got older, I suppose I've believed more that things happen for a reason, and I can't look back and look at it in a regretful way, because it's what's happened. I've certainly learnt a lot from the experience. If I was thinking just purely racing, yes, probably if I'd have started go-karts. I started when I was 17, which is quite late. I was the youngest in the family to start racing, put it that way. But I suppose if I look at just the racing in itself, yes, I think if I'd have started when I was 8 or 9 in go-karts and had all that experience in karts before I reached cars, I think I would have grown as a person more than I had not doing it. But I don't want to look back and be regretful for it. I look back, I think I used to, as I was growing up. But I think now I'm at a stage in my life where I can look back and say, okay, things happen for a reason. And when I analyse some of those things, I start to work it out a little bit, And I've still got a lot of years left in me, so I'm better off looking at that experience and saying, okay, this is where it went wrong. These are the reasons why. Don't look at it back in a sort of in an ego type way. Try and analyze it, take the ego away, and look at it, and you can understand it a little bit better. And so I want to learn from that experience, and I want to look forward. I don't want to look back.
Changing the subject somewhat, do you ever feel fear whilst you're driving?
No, I don't. I suppose the fear of, fear, what is fear? False expectations appearing real. I mean, that's what fear is. If we could eliminate fear, I think our lives would be a lot better. No, I think I'm sure everyone has fear in them. I mean, it's natural, unfortunately. And there are probably times when you've had a bad run, you've had an accident or something like that, and you get back in the car and you're not quite there, and we've all gone through it. A lot of people probably don't want to admit it, but we've all gone through it. And fear is in not so much fear of crashing and hurting yourself. I suppose it's the fear of underperforming yourself. And if you're not performing it, the chances are that you're not going to get a good drive and so forth, and you can end up getting wrapped up into it. And
it's a sort of fear of failing to perform, rather than a physical fear of the danger.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be aware of the dangers, obviously, but I think you've got to have the trust in the team, and you've got to have total and utter belief in yourself. I mean, I think that is more of a key than anything. That if you have that total belief in what you can do and what you're able to do, then there's no reason to fear or have doubts.
You're hitting on another point there, which is kind of self-confidence. In terms of concentration, particularly here at Le Mans, you've got long periods of driving, high concentration. Is that a very important part of being a racing driver?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this particular race, it always helps to have experience here. I remember my first time here in '92. I drove for Toyota in the Group C cars, which were great cars. But the first time I got in the car in the race, it was at night, and it was pissing down with rain. Not only was it night time, but it was thick fog, and I was shitting myself. I tell you, I can't. I mean, the first lap I didn't get out of third gear because I could not see a thing. But there was still no pace car or anything, and I thought I've just got to go flat out like everyone else. And I felt very uncomfortable doing it because, I'd be going down the straight, just seeing these lines in front of me. If there was a slow car in front, I would have hit it, if I hadn't reacted in time, and thank God I didn't, But this particular track here, I think experience definitely helps, and when you've got to concentrate for so long, and particularly when you're tired, you need to. This is where you need that self-belief. You need to have that focus the whole time, and it's a long race, but you've got to have that mindset in your mind as a positive mindset the whole time. Focus on it and work with the team, and the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Are you actually thinking about things? Are you thinking about steering, turning in, braking, the cars around you? Or do you find that as you get into a stint that your mind kind of empties and that there's a thing known as the flow or the zone when everything's just happening and you're just part of it rather than controlling it?
Yeah, when you start the race, you're thinking about everything. And you're thinking about, okay, what speed are we going to be able to run at? It all depends on the car and the grip and everything. You get a situation as the race unfolds, you then start to get into that zone where you jump in. You're not thinking so much about the driving or the problems with the car, but you're noticing everything, but you're noticing it at a slight distance away from it. So you're able to then mentally be in the flow of the way the race is going, and that as the race goes on and on and on, I think as it goes into the night, you're really in that flow. If you're able to, I mean, it's a great feeling. But the difficulty is when that sun comes up and you've got so many more hours to go, you're tired and stuff like that. To remain in that flow, I think, is important. And it's tough. It's tough to do it.
Is it something which you enjoy? I mean, is that part we started off with what you enjoy out of racing? Is that when the sort of the peak of where the enjoyment comes from, or is it more just standing on a podium at the end?
No, I mean, obviously the podium at the end, if you're on the podium at the end, is what you're aiming for, particularly the top spot. But this, I think, when you get to the morning and then you look ahead and you think, God, you've got another, how many hours you've got left. I mean, here, obviously, the race starts at 4 and finishes at 4. We've got a hell of a lot of time as that sun comes up. Still another day to go. But I think it becomes then more that personal challenge upon yourself, to you go back in the car and you're tired, your body aches, and you get in that thing, you've just got to keep pushing hard, and you're then relying more and more on yourself as a person, individual, and you've got to keep it going for yourself, for the team, for that result that you want to get. And when you get on that podium, I mean, I've been on the podium here once with the Jaguar, and that feeling when you walk up there and know that you've not only you're on there, but you've done the race and you've got through it. And it's a great feeling, you can't sit there and describe it to someone. You just got to feel it,
Podiums at Le Mans are said to be very special. You've count yourself honoured to have been up there?
I mean, when I was on the podium with the XJ220 Jag, which was the GT class, I mean, the result didn't stand because of it.
We don't have to cover that.
But the very special feeling of being up there, not only being on the podium, but being a Jaguar driver as well, with all those fans out there. It was like we'd won the race. The big announcement, the Jaguar drivers were coming on. I'd had the car drop on my foot before the race, and it was black and blue, and I had to wear a sneaker, and it was so painful through the whole race. But when walking onto the podium, I didn't feel a thing. And I have to say, it was a very, very special moment. Very special moment. Not only that, my brother won outright in the Peugeot, and so it was a great, after the race back at the chateau we were staying at. Jeff and I were sort of outside with, the two trophies sitting next to each other, and we're just kind of looking at them, it was very, very special, and once you've tasted it, you want more of it, and unfortunately, I haven't had that taste of having it again, but I certainly am working towards doing it again on the top spot on the main deal,